Before we jump into this lecture, I just want to recognize that there are various gender identities that people belong to. A lot of the research that I'm going to present to you today is going to focus on cisgender men and cisgender women. We're starting to get more research that's a bit more gender inclusive, but the bulk of your textbook will focus on cisgender individuals. So, when it comes to men and women, there are actually more differences within those two groups than there are between those two groups. Despite stereotypes, men and women are more alike than they are different. However, there are some super interesting key differences between men and women that we'll cover today. In regards to human sexuality, the stereotype is true that men tend to think about sex more often, view more pornography, masturbate more, and hook up more often in comparison to women. Additionally, men are more likely to experience sexual overperception bias. This is when unattached heterosexual men are alert to women's interests and often misperceive a woman's friendliness as romantic interest. In comparison to men, women experience greater sexual plasticity. This has a few meanings. Women's sexual beliefs and behaviors can be more easily shaped and altered by cultural, social, and situational factors. For example, women's sexual activity is more variable than men's. If a woman is in a relationship, she might frequently have sex. But if she ends that relationship, she might have no sex at all, including masturbation, for months afterward. Men, on the other hand, show less variability. They're more likely to hook up and continue masturbating after a breakup. There's also evidence that a woman's sexual orientation is more plastic than men's. Women are more likely to experience changes in their sexual orientation as they age. These gender differences also transcend sexual orientation. So we find that gay women report more concern with their partner's physical attractiveness in comparison to gay men, and gay male couples report having sex more frequently than gay female couples. Evolution helps explain what men and women find attractive in a partner. You may have noticed that women tend to be choosier in a partner than men are. This isn't coincidence. Evolutionarily, it makes a lot of sense. Women have more at stake. Women are the ones who get pregnant and nurse their babies. To help raise their babies, they try their best to find a good partner who is going to stick around and help raise the baby. Women are attracted to men who have traits that are associated with reproductive success. So this includes a slim waist and broad shoulders. Additionally, women tend to be more attracted to affluent men. Again, evolutionarily, this makes sense. Affluent men have the means of providing more for her and her children than non-affluent men. It'll be interesting to see how and if this changes, since women are now more likely to hold jobs and accrue their own assets. Men tend to date more widely, which totally makes sense based on evolution. To pass on their genes, they try to find as many partners as they can. Men are also attracted to traits associated with reproductive success. So for men, these traits include smooth skin, youthful shape, and a body that conveys health and fertility, such as a narrow waist and bigger hips, which is also a sign that she has yet to have children. This preference is so strong that even blind men find themselves more attractive to women with a low hip-to-waist ratio. Men are more attracted to young women, so roughly the mid-20s range, because that age is associated with peak fertility. Gender and sex are two different concepts. The sex is defined as the biologically influenced characteristics by which people define male, female, and intersex. More on intersex individuals in just a minute. Sex is a biological concept. It applies to humans and animals. When a baby is born, if it has a penis, then we call it a male. If it has a vagina, then we call it a female. If it has ambiguous genitals, then we call it intersex. Gender is a social construct. It's defined as the behavioral characteristics that people associate with a boy, girl, man, and woman. It's unique to humans. While you may refer to your dog as a good boy, he has no understanding of what gender is, or what it means to be a boy, or what is viewed as masculine and feminine. While sex is very categorical, so you're either male, female, or intersex, gender is on a spectrum. For example, think about your friend group. You may have a female friend who is very girly and encompasses a lot of Western stereotypes of what it means to be a girl. You may also have another female friend who dresses more androgynous and bends the typical stereotypes associated with being a girl. Our gender may change over time. Sometimes our gender does not match our biological sex. To help you remember the differences between sex and gender, remember that your body defines your sex and your mind defines your gender. Intersex gets its own slide because it's an important concept to cover. Intersex individuals possess both male and female biological sex characteristics at birth. For example, a baby may be born with what looks like an enlarged clitoris. At least 2% of people are born intersex, and that's reported numbers. Due to things like shame and stigma, there may be more intersex people out there, but they don't feel comfortable reporting that they're intersex. If you think about that number, it's huge. That's about 156 million people worldwide. In the past, doctors would often recommend that these children underwent surgery so they could have the physical appearance of one gender. There has been a lot of controversy around this, as some of those children that were assigned one gender later identified as the opposite gender, or they didn't identify as being either male or female. Most of today's experts recommend delaying this surgery until a child's gender identity becomes more clear. Intersex is not a gender or a sexual orientation. It's a sex. It's also different from transgender, which we'll discuss later. Men and women are fairly similar to one another on measures such as self-esteem and IQ scores. There are a few noteworthy differences. Men are more likely to develop personality disorders like antisocial personality disorder. They're also more likely to be diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit disorder. Men are more likely to complete suicide, and this is because compared to women, they're more likely to use more lethal methods like firearms. Women are more likely to develop depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. Men are often viewed as more aggressive than women. Men typically exhibit more physical aggression than women. Men often feel pressure to exhibit aggression. Anger is one more negative emotion that society has deemed acceptable for men to show, which is really sad since men are complex humans who do experience the full range of emotions. If men are feeling sad, it's frowned upon for them to express these emotions. There are a few situations where society views it as okay for men to express their emotions. For example, if a man proposes, it's acceptable for him to be extra loving and maybe even tearful. Women, on the other hand, are more free to express their emotions. If they cry, people don't view them as negatively as they would a man. Hopefully, we start to see a big shift in this as people become more aware of emotional intelligence and the harm of suppressing emotions. Women are more likely to display relational aggression, which is when someone behaves aggressively with the intent to harm a person's relationship and social standing. Men are viewed as more socially powerful than women. They are viewed as good negotiators who are confident. And women are viewed as more warm and welcoming. There are a ton of workplace biases associated with gender differences, which you can find in your textbook. Socially, men tend to be viewed as independent. So men are also more likely to offer up answers despite not knowing if the answer is factual, which has been deemed male answer syndrome. Brain scans have shown that in comparison to men, women's brains are usually wired in a way that enables social relationships. Women are often viewed as more interdependent. They have more intimate friendships and more conversations. They're also more likely to be approached for social support than men are. As adults age, the gender differences regarding social connectedness and power level out. The last difference between the two regards aging and development. Women typically begin puberty earlier than men, and they often live longer. Our physical sex is determined by chromosomes. Our mothers provided us with an X chromosome, while our fathers provided us with either an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. If you received two X chromosomes, then you developed into a female. If you received a Y chromosome, then you developed into a male. If you're a male, then the main hormone that you produce that affects your sexual development is testosterone. For females, the main hormone is estrogens. Once we enter puberty, we experience dramatic physical changes. This period usually lasts around 2 years and probably isn't a part of your past that you frequently wish you could go back to. During puberty, your genitals rapidly develop and become sexually mature. These are known as your primary sex characteristics. Your secondary sex characteristics, such as hips, breasts, body hair, and voice changes, also developed. Nature sometimes blurs the line between males and females. For example, some genetic males may be born with 2 or more X chromosomes, as well as a Y chromosome. This can result in sterility and small testes. Genetic females may be born with only 1 normal X chromosome and may not have periods, develop breasts, or be able to have children without reproductive assistance. Our culture shapes our behaviors by telling us how we should behave. Gender roles are a set of expected behaviors, attitudes, and traits for men and women. Traditionally, women have been ascribed to the roles of caregivers, stay-at-home moms, weak, and needing somebody to provide for them. Over the last century, these roles have begun to shift. So women are now able to vote, enter the workforce, and drive cars. Men have typically been viewed as providers with high levels of masculinity. Today, these roles are changing. It's more acceptable for a man to be a stay-at-home dad or to have a career that is viewed as a more feminine career. There are still a lot of traditional gender roles that our society holds, and we definitely have a long way to go before we can say that men and women are viewed equally by society. Attitudes about sexual aggression are influenced by gender roles. So sexual aggression is any behavior of a sexual nature that is unwanted or intended to harm someone. Sexual assault and harassment fall under this term. Your book goes over some of the effects of sexual aggression, including how victim blaming has declined over the last 50 years. Gender identity is our sense of being male, female, neither, or some combination of male and female. So binary refers to our sense of being male or female, while non-binary refers to an individual who may not feel male or female, or may identify as some combination of male and female. Social learning theory states that we learn social behaviors by observing and imitating, and by being rewarded or punished for our behavior. It assumes that we acquire our identity in childhood, but there's so much more to gender identity than imitation and reward. Gender typing, which is when we take on traditionally male or female roles, varies from child to child. Yet, no matter how much parents encourage or discourage traditional gender roles and behavior, kids are going to drift towards what feels right to them. Some will be androgynous, which is when they display both masculine and feminine psychological characteristics. This actually has some benefits, like the ability to be more flexible in their actions or their career choice. Androgynous individuals also tend to be more resilient, self-accepting, and experience less depression. Transgender individuals are those whose gender identity differs from what's typical for that person's birth-assigned sex. These individuals are stuck in a body that doesn't match their gender, which can be traumatizing. Additionally, they're subject to a lot of discrimination. One study found that only 18% of transgender individuals say that they experience acceptance, and 46% report being harassed. Receiving gender-affirming medical procedures such as hormone use and surgery appears to reduce transgender people's depression, anxiety, and PTSD.